What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with Thaumcraft 5. Now today, guys, we're going to be messing around with totems. Now the main goal of these totems is to allow us to manipulate the aura around us, and now that we've been working in this confined area for a decent amount of time, we are starting to deplete certain aura levels, and they're not going to be refilling as well as others. So first off, we're going to be using the same method that we used last episode to monitor the flux around us, and we're going to be using 6 other setups the same way, using all the different shards to see all the other aura levels around us and get a general idea of what's going on, where they're refilling or why they're not refilling. And if we want to get a general sense, we can pull out the thermometer and we can look in the upper left hand corner. Now you can notice that we do have some levels that are refilling relatively well. Aqua is very full, Terra is also pretty high, Ordo's decent, and then we get down to Ignis, and that's not looking so great. Air's really low. Perdicio, you can barely see it down there. And then, it's good that Flux is really low too, but, we have at least 2 aura levels that need to be fixed, if not 3. So the main goal is going to be to balance these out because obviously they're not refilling as well as we'd like them to. So we're going to be setting up these totems, and before we jump into it, there are a lot of different pieces of these that I'm going to be talking about because you might have different scenarios, because these can be used for a lot of different things. They can be used to draw aura in, to disperse aura in a wide area. So when you construct the totem, you'll be able to decide whether or not you want it to pull or push the aura, and then you'll be able to decide where you want it to pull or push to and from. So there is a lot that can be done. That was an explosion. But we do have to do a little bit of research today. So to start off, the one research that I do have done, and the reason that I don't have more done, is just because it is a relatively long chain. This is going to be master aura tapping. So as always, you can feel free to pause the video if you want to see this. It's not a very complicated one to set up. So if we do get this done, we can go in, and this will be under the Thaumaturgy tab, and this is just going off of advanced aura tapping, which we had gotten before, and this is pretty much just saying that you'll have added further refinements to the methods to tap aura. You're now able to draw a V 3 times faster than normal, which is awesome. That's great. I probably should have had that before, but now that's going to lead us to this, which is basic aura manipulation. Now, after this, there are going to be 2 other things that we can get, the stabilizing totem pole and the totem of attraction, but these are both going to be experience, so I am going to quickly hop off camera. I'm going to get this right here, and then we'll jump back. I'll show you guys the research, and we can continue. Okay guys, so we are back. Now this research is a little bit more complicated than the previous one, but it's really not that bad. It looks like a little bit, but it was really quick to do. So this is going to be the basic aura manipulation research, and as always, pause the video if you want to take a better look at it. So we're going to take that out. We're going to research that, and now if we come in here, you can see that it's 3 experience levels for the totem of attraction and for the stabilizing totem pole. So we're going to get both of those. Not really going to worry about the node stabilizer right now. We can get that later if we want, but we're going to be focusing on the totem today. So we're going to start out reading about the basic aura manipulation tab, which is pretty much going to be all the totem stuff in general. So we are going to be doing an infusion for this. Now keep in mind, this is the aura totem of dispersal. So this is the one that you're going to be getting right off the bat. And we do then use the experience to get the one of attraction. Like I said before, it depends on which one of these you put at the top of your totem. That's what's going to determine if it attracts or disperses the aura that you set it to. So pretty much just saying that you've discovered how to make the totem of dispersal, and it's going to take V near the totem and spread it over a wider area. Messing with the aura is not without risk, and it can convert V into flux, and that's what the stabilizing totem pole is going to allow us to kind of not prevent but control a little bit better. So it requires the shards that are placed in its inventory to act as both fuel and determine what level or what V is affected. So that is why I have gathered a good amount of the entropy shards, the air shards, and unfortunately I didn't gather any fire shards, but we'll be working basically with air today, I think. But we can go back to this. The infusion's relatively similar for the totem of attraction and dispersal. So then we can go over. Each totem has an inner and outer area in which it operates. By default, the inner area consists of the chunk in which the totem is located, and then the outer area is the 8 chunks surrounding it. And then by adding these totem poles that are inner and the totem poles outer, it's going to allow you to kind of alter the areas through which you have outer and inner, and then of course the top is going to determine what happens in those, whether it's pulling to one or pushing to that one. So it gives you a little bit of an example. So a dispersal totem with 1 inner and 2 outer poles will draw V from the green chunk below and push it towards the blue chunk. So This was a little confusing for me at the start. I wasn't sure whether or not there was an overlap, so typically the way I thought about it was that by having one outer pole and one inner pole, that you would have, you know, the one portion in the center, and then on the outside, this would be like 1. The blue area would be the equivalent of 1. But that's not how you're going to think about it, so we'll go over that a little bit later when we're actually setting it up. But for our base, we're not going to want a huge area in the center that we're pulling to, but we're going to want a very large area in the outer portion of it that it's pulling from, just to make sure that we're going to be getting enough of the air aura. So we can see that these are relatively easy to craft. You don't need infusions for these, but they're going to use some silverwood planks, some great wood planks, and then the air shard is going to be for the outer, and I believe, yep, this one is the earth shard for the inner. Everything else is the same. So that is that portion of it. Then we can go to the totem of attraction, and you can see it's relatively similar. You use a chest, a wispy essence, a carrot on a stick. Now the nice thing about the wispy essence is we are going to be using Aurum, so you know, we did go, or at least I went and got a bunch of wispy essence, because that's one way to get Aurum when you need to do infusions. And then the rest of it's relatively simple. The balance shard, the Salus Mundus you get from the balance shard, some amber, carrot on a stick, all that good stuff. So its instability is moderate, so you are going to want to make sure you're, you know, watching it, all that good stuff, but it shouldn't be too difficult. And it pretty much just says that it draws V in from the outer area and moves it towards the inner area. So that's great. And then the stabilizing totem pole. I'm not sure if we're going to worry about this today, but it pretty much says it has a stabilizing effect on the totem. It reduces the chance that flux is created during aura manipulation. And the reason I'm not super worried about it is because right now I don't know how much we're actually going to be manipulating aura, but if we look over here, the flux levels in this area have gone down drastically. It's relatively flat. I mean, it means pretty much flatlining at this point in the area around us. It's not even noticeable on the thermometer. And it used to actually be spiking in the center. So this is pretty good right here. I'm happy with that, and I think we should be relatively good to go. So now what we're going to do is grab out all these different shards to start things out and just throw them in over here to get a better idea of what's going on around us. So we can throw all these in. And there we go. Okay, so this should give us a relatively good sense of what's going on around here. You can see that these are getting replenished relatively well around the centralized area where we're working. The Ordo is getting replenished pretty well too. You know, it starts dropping off around us, which is why it's not as high as these two. But then you can see that we are making a huge dent in air. Okay, it's pretty full in areas around us, not as full as I'd like, but right in the center, it just takes a massive dip, and that's where we're working. And then it's starting to kind of do that with the Ignis. And then over here, this is just atrocious. This is not refilling from really anywhere. It might, if we got a better view of it, start spiking up over here due to a node, but you know, for the time being, this thing is wicked low, and we really do need to fix that because we want all these levels to be, you know, relatively high except for the flux level. So I also think this looks really cool, but yeah, this will be really useful while we're refilling this. So eventually I might want to, you know, expand upon this area, but I believe this is, you know, where we're going to be putting the totem down over here. And you know, you can build it up to, I want to say it's 6, because you can have the totem like top of it and you can have 5 below it, but I don't think we're going to be making it that high because I want to leave room for stabilizing totem poles. For now, we're just going to be experimenting, so we need to do the infusion. I do not believe it requires a specific essence that you use. It just needs to be a wispy essence, and I ended up getting the aqua one. But we're going to grab all this out, and then we are going to need 1 silverwood plank for the center. And then we can come over here, and I forgot actually, we do need to grab out stuff from down here. So I have a bunch of essence to get the Aurum, and then we've got the trapdoors to get the Modus, and I'm using gold to get the, can't even think of what the name is for that, but let's throw in the, we'll throw in the gold first and let that run through. We should definitely have enough space over here. Okay, so I didn't have any of that so far. Okay, so we'll let that fill up. This is going to take some potentia, but we've got that completely full. And we should be good once this fills up, so we can start throwing things over here on the pedestals. Now, there are 7 things in this infusion, so it's not going to be perfectly balanced. Let me, you know, it's probably easier to just go into my inventory and go to the totem pole of attraction, or the aura totem of attraction. So, great wood, chest, balance shard. So, you can just start throwing them over here. Wispy essence, balance shard, and Where did I throw the... Did I already throw down? Yeah, I did. I was wondering why I threw down the Salus Mundus. Okay, so got the amber, carrot on a stick, and chest. So let's make sure we get these relatively opposite each other. Yeah, so gonna want one over here, carrot on a stick, and then amber there. So that should be all 7. Let's just count it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we throw the silver wood in the center, and we're just gonna have to make sure we get all this in here. So next we're gonna go with the wispy essence. I got a lot of this just because I wasn't sure if it was gonna be able to get us enough aurum. We do need 25 of that. So if we take another look in here, yeah, the only difference between these really is they both require modus, potentia, aurum. This one requires a versio, though. I think that's how you pronounce it. And this one requires desiderium. So that's really the only difference. We used gold for that. I used, I believe, stone swords the last time I tried to get the other one. But yeah, so there we go. Yeah, we do need to throw probably like one more in there, one more set of the wispy essence. One thing I want to note is I did move a couple things around in the base while this is going on. Obviously, I expanded over here because we do need a little bit more room. And eventually, I'll start adding a different floor for this. But I did move the automated alchemy setup over here just to open up a little bit more room. It was suggested that I add a hungry chest here and that I add in a hopper over there, which I should have done before this episode, but eventually I will get that all over here. I just moved it because we do need a little bit more room to work. So this should be good. Do we have enough? Oh, we only have 24. You know, we'll just throw in the rest of this wispy essence, and then once we get the trapdoors in there, we should be relatively good to start. I'm curious which one it would suck out first, because if it doesn't suck that out first, we actually could probably start while this is working. Where's the modus going? Okay, so it's going up there. I'm just curious if we're going to get enough from these trapdoors. I made 40 of them, but I'm not sure. We need 25. I feel like we'll have enough, but I don't want to start it if we're not going to have enough. How many are we sitting at in here? 20? Yeah, we should be good. Okay, you know what? Let's risk it. Let's risk it. Let's get our wand out, our staff right now, and let's start this up. And then we got to keep an eye on everything. Okay, so good. It's not starting with modus. Starts with potentia. Keep an eye on all this. I can see the carrot on a stick through there. Make sure none of it's popping off. The instability level is moderate. I think we've done a couple ones that are worse. But this one is a little bit worse than the pretty much not unstable ones that we've done before. It's looking pretty good. Finishing up with modus. I really hope that we definitely have enough of that. Okay. Yep. So the modus was fine. Nothing's popped off yet. I'm really happy that we don't actually need to use infusions for anything else, just because infusions are like really tedious to do on camera because of how long they take. Okay, so it's sucking in the items. We should be relatively good now. I don't think any are going to pop off. We also haven't gotten hurt, which is pretty nice. Okay. And the last two over here. Okay. There we go. It looks awesome. It looks like a head. So the aura totem of attraction. How much modus do we have left? 6. Okay, so we cut it a little bit close there, but now we have the aura totem of attraction. So what we can do now is make a couple of the totem poles that we're going to need. So like I said, I will eventually put down stabilizing totem poles. It's the same recipe except it uses a balance shard. And one of the reasons that I'm actually not going to be doing that today is, like I said, just because I'm not really worried about the flux levels, and I do want to experiment a little bit and see if what we're going to use in terms of inner and outer totem poles are going to be enough for what we need. Because it looks like, at least in the case of this aura, that, you know, we're going to have a very wide radius to actually be able to suck in an amount that's going to refill. So let that charge up to full. And I'm thinking we're probably going to want one inner and, let's say, two outers. Yeah, I think one inner and maybe, let me take a look at that diagram again. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So when one inner, you have the base chunk, and then you have the outer chunk, so that's 1, and then the blue one is the base outer chunk, and then you add 2 more to that. So I think that setup will actually work for us, and then if we want, we can throw on 1 more outer, so we'll have 1 inner and then another outer. So what we're going to do is grab out the silver wood planks. We already have some great wood planks left over, and then the earth shard and the air shard, and I'll just grab out the entropy shards for later when we're going to use those. Okay, so we're going to be making, like I said, 1 inner, because that should cover most of our base where we refill it, and then we're going to do 2 outers for now. We can always add another outer, like I said, but I'd like to leave some room for the stabilizing ones if we can get 2 of those. So we want 1 inner, and then we'll replace that and go with 2 outers. Ugh, we got to refill this. Ooh, the nice thing though is it should refill faster. Yeah, it refills at 3 at a time now instead of 2 because we got that new research. Yeah, okay, that's awesome. I do need to upgrade this wand eventually, just because it's nice having the staff, because that's like I have that on me all the time, and that has a very high capacity, but we can't fit that in the table. That's the one downside. So yeah, get that back in there and get 1 more outer. So now we can set this up. I've never actually set this up before, so I'm gonna set it up right here in the corner. I want to say we probably just set it up like, no, that is not how we do that. Okay, good. Gives it back to us. Nice. And then, do we throw this down on top? That looks so weird. Okay, so then we go in here, and this is where we're going to throw the shards. So let's throw the entropy shards. It uses them like fuel, and it also dictates what it's... Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so it's obviously it's working. And let's watch the levels here. These should go up. Oh, you can see them changing. Oh, those are changing. Okay, so that is going up. It's pulling it from the area around us, and it should be going up in the center. It's not going up super fast, but it's very slowly moving it from the area around us into the center and replenishing it. So let's look at this compared to the other ones. We can watch it as it goes up. Yeah, that is great. Wow, that's so easy to set up to fix that issue. Now, obviously, it wouldn't fix it if there's nowhere around here that's going to replenish the surrounding areas. So let's say that nowhere in this surrounding area is it ever going to replenish, and we're just draining it and draining it and draining it and draining it. Then this isn't going to fix that, because then we're just going to drain a different area, and then the same issue is going to happen, and we'll have nowhere to draw from. But I believe that having it spike over in that corner there means that if I expand the radius with maybe 1 more, maybe we need 2 more, that we should be able to draw from an area that is getting replenished frequently. So this one looks to be relatively even with air now, and I think I want to take this out, and it should still be doing, yeah, so this actually fuels it for a really long time. We made it through roughly half. I was going to say barely half, but yeah, we've made it through roughly half. I'm curious what happens. Do I have the air shards in my inventory? No, I do not. I'm wondering what happens if we... Where did the air shards go? Where did I throw those? Oh, they're still in there. Okay. I was so confused. I was going to say, there's no way I used all those. If we throw it in there... Okay, so it does not override it. So we'll leave 1 in there. That's kind of nice. It goes all the way through. It'll replenish this. Yeah, that is great. That is awesome. Okay, so once that finishes, then I'm curious if this one will spike a lot harder, because as you can see, there's like higher levels in the area around us, and it's being replenished a lot better. And then the center is just where this huge drop occurs. So I'm wondering, I want to let this finish, and I know it's probably a little boring because, you know, we're just kind of sitting here watching this level very slowly rise. But before I end the episode, I want to see if it does replenish faster if you've got higher levels in the surrounding areas as it's drawing in. And that'll be good just because it means we can keep messing around with magic here, and all these, you know, precautions that we've taken for the flux and for replenishing aura will allow us to continue working in our base without having to travel anywhere or worry about any issues with depleting anything or getting too much flux around us. And this is still going down too. That's great. Okay. Yeah, so that is, now the problem would be air relative to that. So this should start drawing in air in 1 second here when it finishes. Okay, so the particle colors change. That's a good indication of what it's drawing in. It's a little difficult to see. I might have my particles on decrease too, but let's see how fast this one replenishes itself. Yeah, so you can see this one changes a lot. It seems like it changes a lot faster to even it out. Maybe it's just because it's a lot more noticeable, but you can see some pretty hefty drops coming in there in the area around it. And it's interesting because it kind of averages it. That's the way I see it. It's kind of averaging the area around it. And then obviously eventually it's going to spike in the center. But right now, because this is a dip, it's going to kind of average this out with the area around it. And then it's going to continue going if you have it and kind of bring a spike up in the center unless we expand the central area. Okay, well, we're going to call it there for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you found it entertaining or informative in any way, please feel free to give it a like, as it does help me out a lot. If you have any questions, feel free to post those in the comments, and I will talk to you guys later.